Hi everyone, I'm Rose Martin and we are right around the corner in Winchester, Virginia at the beautiful historic George Washington Hotel. We're sitting here in the Half Note Lounge, and the Half Note Lounge have had people like Bob Hope and Lucille Ball. This hotel, built in 1924, is a perfect setting for our special guest. It's Adriana Trigiani. Okay, you know her from the Big Stone Gap. You know her as a director and a filmmaker. We call her one of ours. She is hilarious. She's a captivating storyteller. We're gonna talk all about Big Stone Gap, but also about her new release, Tony's Wife, which is why we're here. It's gonna be a great show, and thanks so much for joining us. Hello, Adriana.
Hello, Bella Rose.
Bella Adriana, thank you so much.
With your Bella Pizzelles that you made.
Yeah, just a little special love, right? Sharing a little bit of the love.
Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous.
So growing up, it had to be so much fun to...
In Big Stone Gap, Virginia.
In Big Stone Gap, Virginia.
I am an Appalachian Italian American.
And those stories are fabulous, because I love the fact that you said, you know, immigrant is an honor. It's an important word.
It's a word of honor.
Yeah, it's a word of honor. And in Big Stone Gap, Virginia, it was a little bit of a culture shift from some of the other places around the world, but yet you talk so much about those Appalachian values early on and what it was like with your family. And is it really that different, the Italian family unit with the Appalachian family unit, when you talk about values and stuff?
It really isn't. I mean, the Appalachian people are the best people in the world.
Yes.
You know, they're just, I can give you a laundry list of why I love them and why they're important to me, and why in my development as a human being, I refer and go back to the values that I saw around me when I was being raised in our home. They're similar. Might be a different religion, might be a different point of view on something, but there was an underlying sort of river of faith and family and love, and sort of I think a stewardship of the land that to sustain and grow communities that you can't find anywhere in the world anymore. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so when I got out in the world and started traveling and returning to my roots in Italy, I started to see, and I had the great fortune of working in places like Scotland, where the Appalachian roots are very deep, and Ireland and Northern England, and I started to see, you know, our people really emerge. It was very familiar to me.
What about when you go back?
It's the best.
Yeah.
Like I can breathe.
Sure.
I can breathe again, you know. I still have the same friends I had in the second grade.
And what about those values? It's almost like, does time stop, and that those things that are so essential, family and truth and honor and neighborliness and community, it seems like it doesn't change because it's just part of the culture, the fabric of the people.
Even with the social problems that have been, and I feel, foisted on the people, okay? And we can go for hours about that. Even with those, there is such a decency in the way the Appalachian people cope with things. And there's something to be learned there, and to be reminded of all the time, that and it gives me great comfort. And if of course it's familiar, but it's also, you know, it resonates wherever I go, those lessons that I learned there. So it's not so much like I go and I come back to it. I take it with me wherever I go. And I think that's the important thing. You know, there's a lot of noise made about, oh, where do you live? I don't think that's important anymore, because you can be anywhere on these phones. Could be in Bangladesh in 2 seconds. I mean, so the important thing is to connect as human beings, because as we know, people have never been more lonely in the world. So
And even with all of the technology, it seems like people don't have a conversation.
Nope.
You know, you might text and those things can be misinterpreted, and it's like, put it away. Maybe that area of Big Stone Gap, maybe it's better not to have a lot of cell phone service, right? So people are actually having conversations with each other.
Really, they got it, it's very good now.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, but it wasn't,
right.
You know. One of the great things that happened to me is that there wasn't good television reception. In the 1970s, when I grew up, there wasn't good reception, so you couldn't see it, and I wasn't interested in it. I became an avid reader instead. So, except for the Waltons. Now, when the Waltons came on, we had clear reception by then. I'm a big Earl Hamner fan. You know, he was a great mentor to me. You know, another Virginian. But I just didn't take to it, and then I ended up writing television. But I think if I would have seen a lot of it, and it would have been overly familiar to me, I wouldn't have been that interested in it. But I was interested in it as a theatrical form.
I love piece of advice that you've given to people that's about gifts. You know, the land gives us gifts. And you had said one time that your gift to Big Stone Gap was your love story, you know, that you did. And I thought that was so beautifully done. And then I heard something else that you said, you know, there's really two things we give people. You know, we give them our time, and the gift of our time is something that, and we give them ourselves. And I thought,
ourselves, those two things, that's all you got. And people can be critical, and they can say, hey, it's not enough, you don't do enough, you know. We try with the Origin Project, we're in the schools, we try to do everything we can do. With the gifts we're given, I can't go in and do things that I don't know how to do. I have to do things I know how to do in a way that will be received.
That's good.
It has to be
good,
received.
That's good, yeah.
You can't just, and then what do I know? I know what I know to help in the ways that I know how to help or guide. But here's the thing. I wrote those books. I want some kid in the Origin Project come along and write more books. Do better than me. Make more movies, more television shows, more plays, more musicals. Right. We took the Bank Street model. Nancy Bohmeyer Fisher, who grew up in Wyoming in a small town. I met her when I was an office temp in New York, and I said, you know, probably 10 years ago, 9 years ago, I said, I want to do something in the schools, because I loved when guest artists came to my school. So we started this Origin Project. We sat down and said, what should it be? So using retired teachers, Linda Woodward comes in. We start at the beginning of the year, and each kid gets a journal. Now, we give them a book to write in. And I said, make it your own, cover it, scribble in it. Journal if you want, but they're to work on one interview a year. I'm going to get you down there.
Okay,
because we work
I'll do
on
it.
one thing, and that it could be a neighbor, because a lot of kids aren't in traditional intact two-parent families. Some are raised by mama, papa, an aunt or an uncle. Some are in group homes. It just depends, you know. And we go in. We started out with 40 kids, and now we have over 1,500.
Wow.
It's really profound. And the second semester, we bring in a guest artist. So we brought in Laurie Eustace from New York, who was a New Yorker poet, and she did a beautiful job. She had written a poem about her son's suicide, and that was something to open up the floodgates for the kids. And Margot Lee Shetterly came in, and David Baldacci, and Meg Wolitzer, and Mary Hogan. I mean, we get these great, you know, YA authors, and we have something great planned for the second semester this year. So we bring them in, and now we're doing where we take the kids out of the communities to be together. To the Barter Theater. Rick Rose.
Oh, I love the Barter Theater.
Well, listen, the Bar. It's the oldest.
Yes.
I mean, it's Virginia's treasure.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, Virginia. You can't find a bigger fan than me. From the ocean to the mountains, it's incredible. And the Barter Theater it's just one of your gems here. And Rick Rose has turned it into a powerhouse theater company. And we go in and we bring kids. They're in a theater. They set foot in a theater. It's beautiful.
Well, and the fact that they recognize that even if their family, like you said, is not what people might consider traditional family, it's their family, and it's perfect. It's the way they have it, and
it's how they're loved.
Yes,
it's
exactly
how they see the world, you know.
Exactly right. And I love that you want the working people of America, everyone who knows and reads your books, to know that, you know, their heart and soul and the beauty they find in everything they do is recognized, and it's acknowledged, and it's all through your work. And I think that's a validation for people too.
Well, you know, the writing, it's almost like a compass. It finds you. It tells you. It informs you. You don't inform it. It informs you, and then you deliver what it is you're supposed to deliver. Okay, so.
But how does that compass find you?
Well, this is how it finds you. First of all, education and training help, and by that I mean to read. And I was a theater major. And when I got to New York, as a young writer, a director, George Keithley, who was very well known, put me with a mentor, Ruth Getz. And Ruth Getz was half of the team that wrote The Heiress, if you remember that. And I went every Saturday morning for about 7 years, and she did what we call gardening lessons, and they were brutal. I mean, she just ripped my plays apart. I'm a dramatist, basically, you know.
Well, and I love your alternative path of becoming a novelist by starting first playwriting and screen.
My mother was a
acting.
librarian, and books are sacrosanct to me, and I don't hear it. I hear, although I did. To be a dramatist is about dialogue and set and scene and moving a story through in a way. Dramatizing means you put the story on its feet and it is brought to life by actors. Okay, so when I was in college, I learned directing, writing, and acting almost synergistically by my professors. So I studied all three at once, and I just kept making a snowball out of it and kept working with it. Maybe clay is a better, I don't even know, maybe a meatball is a better, so I kept adding ingredients. But in learning how to do it that way, I've always worked that way. And my professors, starting with my professor, Reg Bain, he studied with Tyrone Guthrie. So the person who sells the ticket in the theater is as important as the lead actress, or the lead actors are, because it's all part of the experience. So I come at the theater or the movies or that way to encompass everybody comes in. I almost try to make a family so that everybody's on equal footing and everybody's heard. So when I went to write novels, I was by myself, but I could do anything I wanted in this world. After a few years of writing for television and having run a show and doing, I was free again. I love this form of art. It is, it can be lonely and it can be very hard, but it is, I mean, writing Tony's Wife, it was a glorious respite. Kiss Carlo, Shakespearean, big, crazy, two families feuding. I like conflict. I love writing about the pith of life, you know, always rooted in something real. And I pull the threads, you know, with Big Stone Gap, it was four books to take this woman, you know, through her life, through motherhood, till her child leaves the nest. So, you know, it just depends, I guess, what you listen to as an artist that gets you into what you're going to tell. And then the people inform it too. They tell you, I don't like that, or I like it, and then you know.
And I love the strong women in all of the books. And there's some interesting mother-daughter dynamics, you know, woven throughout them, which I find fascinating too. One other thing I wanted to ask you about, when you go into your process, you have an interesting way of being able to tap that subconscious mind that I've heard you talk about. How does that work?
Well, you know, it's something that you do. I started doing it before I knew what it was. And basically it's that inner voice that, like right now I'm talking to you, Carol's running the camera, the lights are on, but I'm writing a book.
I hope we have a really good part. Yeah, I know you're a people observer, so I'm like, okay, Carol, let's see where we end up.
Those pizzelles, look at them, they're like the Leaning Tower pieces. Well, it's always, your subconscious is always working, even when you sleep. So that's how I work. I work when I sleep, and I've learned how to use that energy of the subconscious, meaning, you know, the best way to describe what it is it's that, you know, when you have to go somewhere and you wake up at a different time, and you set your alarm and you call your mother or your friends and you say, wake me up at 4:30 in the morning because I have to catch a bus. And you've set the alarm and you wake up at 4:29 and then the alarm goes off.
Okay,
well, I use that voice to like do everything.
Wow.
So I never sit down and get writer's block because I've already decided what it's going to be. Like I go, what's Ave Maria going to do? And then I have it. And if over time you've trained it, you never run out of ideas because your imagination is limitless. And I think it's put there, of course, by the Heavenly Creator. I think it's put there by God. And so it's endless. It's just, you could come up with things all day.
And it takes back to that finding your gift and using it, right? Because we inherently have one. The gift of Big Stone Gap to the people of Virginia and to Big Stone Gap is just awesome.
I hope
it is
so.
love.
I hope so, because it's very dear to me. And you know, a lot of people gave a lot of time and energy to the dramatization of making that movie. Nobody went into it like we're gonna make a profit. We didn't care about that. And the actors came in. I mean, the Academy Award-winning actors.
Exactly.
Took less pay. I said I made more money babysitting when I was growing up in Big Stone Gap. We put money into it.
And you left money in the community. I love that.
Well, yeah, exactly. You know, any money that was granted, okay, from the Tobacco Commission, you know, because there's controversy on the internet, which I do not engage.
Right. Smart move.
I stay above the fray.
Yay.
Any money that I raised from the Tobacco Commission by the terrific people that are behind that, I raised because I went through the Film Commission in Virginia. Andy Edmonds, a superstar, and Rita McClenny, a superstar, now runs tourism. It took 13 years to make the movie because it was getting everything aligned, but they were as determined as I was. And when Mr. Spielberg came to Virginia to make Lincoln, I said, hey, I don't want as much as you have to give him, but give us a little piece to make this movie. And then we raised the rest in Hollywood. So the people in Virginia can rest assured every penny of that money was spent on the ground in Virginia.
You are so awesome.
Every penny. And I believe in that. And I was raised that way. And we didn't take anything out of state. It was all here. And I didn't want to do it in Vancouver, Canada. It doesn't look like Virginia. And plus, I could hire my high school friends to act.
And how cool is that, right? So let's talk about this brand new one, Tony's Wife. So I love Chi Chi.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome character, and we're in this cool space that is just all about the music, right? This book is all about the music, and you know, and Tony. So share a little bit about.
Well, I wanted to write the story of you know, when I tour with books, you know, obviously because I'm from Big Stone Gap, I'm very interested in the coal industry. Always have been. I'm just interested in mining, coal. I'm interested in steel, the making of cars. You know, when I rent a car, when I go to a town, I go, oh, give me the blue one. I don't know one car from another. You could give me the most expensive car, the cheapest car, I wouldn't know the difference, and I can't tell when I'm driving them. I don't know. But with this, I wanted to start it in a steel mill and in a car factory. So I studied Henry Ford and the Rouge River plant outside Detroit, because a lot of my people, the Italian Americans, worked there. But not just my people, your people, everybody's people. African Americans, Greek Americans, Italian Americans, Irish, Scott, everybody. People came from the mountains of Virginia and went up there and worked. People were, it was 100,000 men per day.
Wow.
And Henry Ford, and you'll find critical things about him, but what was interesting to me about him is what a consummate visionary he was. He bought coal mines, he bought the river, he bought the real estate, to make the cars. So if you needed steel, he said, I'll buy a steel mill. We need to make glass. Well, he did what he needed to do to melt the glass and do the thing, the cyanide foundry. That was his. So it was this giant metropolis, and then he hired the best architects to build the factory, and he invented basically the conveyor belt. Because people were making cars in their backyards.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one side of the story. And then the other side of the story is the woman, Chi Chi, that's Severio, who becomes Tony Arma. She's working on the Jersey Shore in a blouse factory with her sisters, but they have a singing act. And this was a big thing before World War II because of the radio. You know, Bing Crosby was like the biggest star in America, and then there were girl singers. And from that emerged Ethel Waters and Rosemary Clooney and Dinah Shore and those girls. Rosemary Clooney out of Kentucky. So what was interesting to me about these two becoming singers was that before 1900, the music came from fancy places. After 1900, It evolved into being a working class art form, and the voice of the last century, Frank Sinatra. So, I dove headfirst. This is like the most delicious novel. If you love a great love story that's fraught.
Yes, I loved it. And Carol and I both read it. And I was thinking, as I'm enjoying the music, and then I read that you actually put on your parents' old vinyl in order to kind of get in the zone for writing this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that sound. And I had to write lyrics, which I have not done. I did it maybe a little bit with my brother at one point, but when I was a kid, but hadn't done it really.
I got
since.
a little ticked off at Tony a few times in here. I don't mind telling you,
You should, because that's a conflict and it's important. You shouldn't.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be, otherwise it's not really a great, story, if a hayride, if you like everybody.
Yeah. Would you read some of it for us?
Of course.
Thank you.
Do you think maybe I should do a little bit about the plant at the beginning?
Sure.
Okay. Severio Armendonado warmed his hands underneath the tin lunch pail on his lap as he rode the trolley from the Chester Street stop to the River Rouge plant. The brown wool gloves his mother had knit for his 16th birthday and given him the week before were unlined. So the heat from the pasty, that's like a meat pie, hot from her oven, wrapped in a cloth and tucked inside, was enough to keep his hands warm until he made the transfer to the flatbed truck that would take him to his place on the assembly line. The trolley rumbled through the snowy streets of South Detroit in the blue darkness before sunrise, making local stops until every car was filled to standing room with the men who made the automobiles for Henry Ford. In the morning, the trolley cars held the clean scents of borax, Castile soap, and bleach. The men's denim trousers, flannel shirts, undergarments, socks, canvas coveralls, and work aprons had been scrubbed and pressed by their wives or mothers or by the laundress in the boarding house. On the return trip, the trolley would smell like a locker room. The mood was as solemn as high mass upon departure, but after a 10-hour day, the cars would explode in a kind of revelry as the air filled with laughter and banter that cut through a thick haze of smoke, puffed from hand-rolled cigarettes and nickel cigars. Severio was a relatively new hire at the Ford plant. However, after nearly a year on the job, the kid was well on his way to being savvy. He could sort the tile makers from the steel cutters, the parts men from the iron ore miners, and the dock workers from the electricians. A stoop in the posture gave away the men who stoked the coke ovens. Hands stained by black metal filaments told the story of the tool and die man, while the glass makers wore the mark of their craft on their faces with a permanent wrinkle etched on their foreheads where the rubber rim of the goggles hugged their skin. Severio knew that particular mark well. His father, Leone, had been a glassmaker at Rouge since 1915. If Severio could match the job to the man by his appearance, he could also identify their skill sets by country. German immigrants assembled engines, while Yugoslavians had an affinity for installing them. Italians leaned towards woodworking and glassworks, and along with the Czechs, tool and die. The Poles handled steel bending, stoking the furnaces, and executing any operation with fire. Albanians worked the coke ovens. The Hungarians did the heavy lifting, maintaining the conveyors and bridges. The Irish were adept at the installation of electrics, transmissions, and radiators. The Scots were perfectionists at hinging, soldering, and clipping. Upholstery, floor beds, and running boards were the domain of the Finnish, Norwegian, and Swedes. The operation of the riverfront, including shipping, delivery, and boat launches, was handled by the Greeks. The Turks and Lebanese tailored ragtops and small-scale interior installations. Black men from the heart of the city worked in the cyanide foundry and maintained and operated the railways within the Rouge campus, an extensive system that had 16 locomotives and 100 miles of track. Incoming trains delivered coal and iron ore for making steel, while outgoing trains transported the finished vehicles out into the world to be sold. And I'll read one more paragraph because
Okay.
this is so cool. Mayflower Americans of English descent were management. The men who worked the line called them college boys, no matter how many decades had passed since their bosses had sat in a classroom. 100,000 men entered the iron gates of the River Rouge campus every morning, 6 days a week for workmen, 5 for management.
Wow. The honor of the immigrants.
The honor of the immigrant. You know, there's so much. Look, there's always a low man on the totem pole, a low woman on the totem pole. Somebody always takes their turn there, you know. Our people did, and it's always the case. But we have to remember where we were. We
Yeah.
have to remember that, and we have to protect the rights of those folks who have that dream that our grandparents and great-grandparents had.
In your books,
Precious.
inspire
It's
us
precious.
and keep us dreaming. And I love
I
the
hope
fact that
so.
we do that and you keep people dreaming, and you have been such a delight. Thank you so much. And you know, let's take Adriana's advice and unplug the phone, put stuff down, and give yourself the gift of a book. Pick up one of Adriana's books and let's keep dreaming. Special thanks to our friends here, Susie Smith at the beautiful George Washington Historic Hotel. Yes. Everyone from Bob Hope, Lucille Ball, and Adriana Trigiani right here. So, and Adriana, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Rose.
And thank all of you for joining us. Make sure to tell your friends about us. If you'd like to learn more about Adriana, her current work, or other projects she's working on, check out more of our conversation online. I'm Rose Martin, and I'll see you next time, right around the corner.
Production funding for Right Around the Corner provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Anne Ray Foundation, and by viewers like you. Thank you.